Hey everyone, it's me, How About Maybe? And this video marks a new series that I want to make where I interview Dead by Daylight players about a killer, perk, playstyle, or just interview them in general. Tell you all what they said, and give my own opinions and responses as well. Just a heads up, the interviews aren't too in-depth, but I feel like they are enough for both me and you viewers to get a general gist of the topic. With that being said, I interviewed a ghoul main, so you don't have to. The ghoul main asked her name anonymous, so instead of shouting them out, I'm going to tell you all that I'm thankful you are here and watching. Oh, and also, shout out to my friend Kassir. She looked through the first draft of the script and gave me some feedback on how to make it better. So, I appreciate you, Kassir. Go give her a follow. Let's start with the first question I asked. Why do you still think people hate the ghoul? To this question, they had a few main points. The first being that ghoul skill floor is quite low, and rage vaults are really fast. However, they believe a big part of the hate comes from people misunderstanding the killer. Some people probably think the killer is still overpowered, and he was one of the most popular killers on release, which contributed to fatigue on the survivor side. Oh, and also people hate weebs. So, as you can see, there is a lot to discuss about why people hate this killer. So we might as well start at the beginning. I agree. Ghoul has a very low skill ceiling and in general, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be hated by the community. I mean, yeah, you have your legions and release good guys, killers with low skill ceilings that get a lot of hate, but then you have your demogorgons, bubbas, and ghost faces. Low skill ceiling killers that are, for the most part, loved by the community. What I think the difference is that Legion, release Chucky, and Ghoul can kind of just get easy injuries. Not always easy downs, mind you, but always easy injuries, which aren't particularly fun to play against most of the time, if not all of the time. When it comes to enraged vaults, I actually want to talk about these later. When it comes to people misunderstanding the killer, I agree 100%. Kaneki has only been out for 2 months at this point, and while more counterplay and tricks to play against this killer have been found, we haven't had the killer out long enough to really understand him fully, which, to be fair, is normal for new killers. Plenty of people still think Kaneki is OP, and yeah, not much to say here. I can tell you why I think people that believe this are wrong, but that isn't the point of this section. With the Ghoul also being a very popular killer and really strong on release, it makes sense why people still hate him and think of him as OP. First impressions are everything, and a bad first impression can taint a killer in the community's eyes for a very long time. Just ask Skull Merchant. Oh wait, you can't, because she's about as dead as your goldfish from 2nd grade who you forgot to feed and left out in the sunlight for 5 hours. You killed Gilbriel. You killed him. Be ashamed of yourself. The next question I asked was, is the vault still too strong? The answer I got was yes and no. As Ghoul was nerfed in every other way than the vault speed itself, the vault is all Ghoul has in chase. They told me Ghoul is a killer with great macro, but very little micro unless they run Bamboozle. After all the changes with pallet breaks, Ghoul relies on mind games, chase perks, and the vault. However, they believe the vault to have 2 main issues. First one being, the vault doesn't work at small loops, and survivors that understand this will just greed pallets, and then when it's dropped, it won't really do much because the survivor can just make it around again. The second issue is that with the nerf to Umbrella, Ghoul has a bigger cooldown after a vault, which puts him more in line with a Wesker vault, which, all things considered, isn't really that impressive. It's average, is what I mean to say. Wesker's vaults are average. Not below average, not above, just average. However, an issue in the opposite direction is that against survivors that don't understand this, the vault is very punishing. This creates 2 extremes. At vaults, it isn't too good at, and against players that understand the vault and the ghoul, it really isn't anything special. In fact, I'd go as far to say it's weak. Against players that lack this understanding, though, or at loops where the vault is good at, it is super oppressive. It is a guaranteed hit in those situations. And this is ignoring the kidnap/hostage texts, as those aren't intended. The ghoul player's thoughts on the vault match my own almost exactly. I would just use a bit harsher language. The vault's just bad at unsafe loops, in my opinion. And even bad at moderately safe loops, whereas it's just unbeatable at God Palettes and Windows. Whereas the ghoul main sees these to be issues with the vault, my opinion differs. The fact the vault is really good at safe palettes and Windows, but mediocre to just bad at any other loop, makes it balanced, in my opinion. But I will acknowledge that, let me put it this way. Is that good gameplay in itself? Probably not, but I don't find it unbalanced. But the factor that I think makes the vault balanced especially, and this is the factor that makes me say that the vault is kind of overrated, is the fact that chainable loops and vaults kill any chase potential that it can give you. Think Eerie of Crows or when Ghoul vaults Grim Pantry Shack's window. The vault helps, but it doesn't guarantee hits anymore on many parts of these maps. I mean, the vault isn't perfect, but I find calling the vault OP to be a bit silly, but I also find people who call it weak and useless also be pretty silly. Just to go off script here for a second, I am not just being, we need to meet in the middle contrarian, just because. It's just genuinely what I think. I promise. I promise. Now, on to the third question I asked, which was, where is Ghoul on the tier list? They told me that they considered Ghoul low A tier, as the Ghoul has good macro, great synergy with a lot of perks, and great add-ons. However, against really good survivors, he drops down to high B tier. I don't have much to say here, I just agree. I just think it's important to get down where a Ghoul main thinks the Ghoul is on a tier list. Next question was, what would you change about Ghoul? They had quite a few changes, like reworking a few add-ons, increasing the range Ghoul can grab objects, but decreasing the range Ghoul can grab survivors. The biggest thing, though, was that they would nerf the enrage vaults. Their reasoning was because they believe Ghoul can't really get buffs in other parts of their kit that they need without the enrage vault being nerfed. Even though they think the vault is balanced, they hate that it's the biggest part of the Ghoul's chase. They want cutting off survivors and body blocking them with the Kagune leaps to be the Ghoul's main focus and chase. This was an interesting response to me, and it made me think about the Ghoul in a different way. I can see the points, and while I would like a Ghoul that doesn't focus on the vault, if we're going to keep the vault in the game, I still want the vault to be worth it. I wouldn't have an issue with nerfing the vault, but with it already being situational, any more nerfs would kind of just make it useless. I would rather they just remove the vault at that point instead of nerf it anymore, and buff up Ghoul in other areas. That would make Ghoul much more tolerable to play against, which was also a reason the Ghoul main gave for wanting the enraged nerf, but would make Ghoul more unique from killers like Wesker and Legion and Chucky. I actually like the idea of removing the vault more than just nerfing it. I mean, if we nerf it anymore, it will be useful in like 3 out of 10 situations. So I would like this idea. Plus it would stop accidental vaults and chase, which would be lovely. The last question I asked was, what is Ghoul's skill floor and what is his skill ceiling? Ghoul is pretty easy to get into with a low skill floor, but has a lot that gives him a high skill ceiling. I would agree. His mobility isn't the hardest thing to use, the vault is pretty simple to understand, but he has things like body blocking, cutting off survivors, and much more. People say that Ghoul is too easy, and it's mostly because of the vault. Just because the vault is a guaranteed hit at some pallets or windows doesn't mean that he is easy. It actually takes skill to know what tiles you can use the vault on. It's very similar to Wesker's Vault and Vecna's Mage Hand. If you were around when Vecna first released, Mage Hand was super OP. No palette was safe, but now it really only gets hits at really strong palettes with a lot of distance around both sides. The practice with Ghoul, getting the sliding down and getting the cutting the survivors off, and body blocking and slingshot tech, which, by the way, is pretty freaking difficult. I tried to do it here in this footage, and I succeed, but, like, it's frame perfect. Well, not quite frame perfect, but I'm pretty close to frame perfect. Those are all things that take skill. But a Ghoul player's experience and skill gets diminished by people because the vault. And I think that's pretty sad. One last thing that kind of connects with what I was just saying is, can we just stop being dicks to people just for playing Ghoul? People are going to play the killer they like. Expecting people not to is so entitled. If you actually hate the Ghoul so much that you will harass people over them playing Ghoul, don't queue up as Survivor. It's simple as that. The entire reason the Ghoul main I interviewed asked to remain anonymous was because of all the hate people who play Ghoul get. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you all for watching. Seriously, I appreciate you looking my channel and deciding you want to watch it, and not only that, you want to watch this video. I do hope to make this a series, and if I do, the next episode would probably be over the Dark Lord. I love you all, stay safe, and make good choices. Or don't. I'm not your...